always knew my brother was going to ruin something big in my life. I just didn't expect it to be everything starting with my car. My name's Riley, and I'm 24. My older brother, let's call him Seth, is 25 and has been a walking disaster since the minute he could drive. Maybe even before that. You know the type golden child syndrome with a dash of professional victim. Our parents, especially my mom, treated him like some misunderstood genius while I was the independent one, which was just code for, we won't help you. When I turned 18, I moved out with barely anything, just a backpack, a phone, and a ride from my Uncle Nate, who was a retired cop. He took me in, no questions asked. Gave me space. Gave me time. Gave me, eventually, a car, a hand-me-down Crown Vic from his department. It was decommissioned, but clean and solid. I loved that beast like it was a pet. Seth hated that car. No idea why. Maybe because I had something he didn't. He went through junker cars like socks, 3 of them, total wrecks. And after the third one croaked against a telephone pole, he started circling my Crown Vic like a hawk. He asked to borrow it. I said no. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. I knew how he drove. That car meant everything to me, not just a ride, but a symbol that I'd made it out of a house that never felt like home. He called me selfish, entitled, said he needed it for work. Take the bus, I said. That's what I did when I didn't have wheels. Then my parents jumped in, called me up like it was a family emergency. Let him use it, Mom said, just this once. Why is it such a big deal? Dad added. You're being difficult again. No, I repeated. He's not touching it. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days later, I got off a late shift, walked to the parking lot, and my car was gone. Panic hit first. Maybe it got towed. Maybe I parked in the wrong spot. Then the dread. I called Seth. Straight to voicemail. Then I called my parents. Oh, Riley, Mom sighed. Seth just needed it for a quick errand. He was going to bring it right back. He stole my car. He borrowed it. You told me he didn't take it. We didn't want you overreacting. I hung up before I said something unforgivable. My uncle helped me track it. Bless that man, he'd installed a GPS tracker a while back just in case. We found Seth 20 minutes later chilling in a gas station parking lot like nothing happened. He was holding a set of old police keys he'd bought online. Some of them were still universal. I didn't steal it, he said. I had a key. You had a fake key. You broke into my car. He shrugged. I told him if he ever did it again, I'd report him. I didn't care if he was my brother. He laughed. I didn't. Then he had the nerve to ask me for a ride home. I told him to walk. It was December. Uncle Nate and I added a kill switch after that. But guess what? On Christmas Eve, in the middle of the family dinner, guess who vanished? And guess what else vanished with him? Yeah, my car. I noticed the empty driveway through the living room window. Pulled up the tracker and saw the dot was already 5 miles away. I called him. Seth, where is my car? Chill, he said. I'm picking up a friend. I'll be back. You better not have been drinking. Click. That silence. That was my last nerve snapping. 15 minutes later, the tracker dot stopped moving. I didn't even have to say it aloud. My uncle saw my face and said, let's go. We piled into my parents' minivan. Cold wind slicing through the air as we hit the icy roads. My heart was pounding. We found him standing next to a snowbank, pacing like a rat. My Crown Vic was buried nose deep in a ditch, steam hissing from the hood. Seth looked pale, shaky. I knew that look. You were drinking, I said. He didn't deny it. He begged me not to call the police. I'll go to jail, he whispered. You should. Uncle Nate was fuming. That car was once his squad ride, his legacy. I saw the heartbreak in his face more than anger. Then the lights rolled up. Someone had already called it in. The cops stepped out, scanned the scene, and one of them recognized Nate. Seth tried to lie. Said it was me driving. Mom backed him up. So did Dad. I wanted to scream. Instead, I let Nate handle it. Calmly, he told the truth. One officer nodded, then walked over to Seth. License. Turns out it was suspended. They breathalyzed him. Failed. The cuffs came next. Mom cried. Dad yelled, but the cop wasn't having it. You want to lie to us again, sir? He asked Dad. That shut him up fast. Christmas ended in silence. They drove us home, didn't say a word. Seth got released the next day. Looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Shaking, quiet, pale. He'd pissed himself in the holding cell, apparently. And my uncle? He laughed. Turns out his friends on the force only charged Seth with the suspended license. No DUI on record. Just a warning shot, Nate said. Next time he's on his own. Seth handed me the Crown Vic keys he'd bought online. I'm sorry, he muttered. I know. The thing about apologies, they only matter when they're not backed into a corner. Seth said, sorry, sure, but only after the cuffs came off and the fear had sunk in deep enough to rattle his bones. He handed over those knockoff Crown Vic keys like they weighed 100 pounds, like maybe giving them up would erase everything he did. Spoiler, it didn't. I kept it civil. I nodded, took the keys, said nothing. But the anger that didn't just melt away. I got the car towed to a local body shop. Nate came with me to get the quote. The damage wasn't as bad as I feared, mostly cosmetic. A busted bumper, one cracked headlight, the front grille half hanging like a broken jaw. It's fixable, the guy said. Won't be cheap, but won't bankrupt you either. Seth showed up later that day with a wad of cash in an envelope. Real money, not IOUs or empty promises. I'll cover it, he mumbled, eyes on the ground. He meant it, I could feel that. And to be honest, that should have been enough. But it wasn't. The weird part, my parents weren't mad at him. They were mad at me. They waited until Seth walked back to the car with the shop receipt, and then Mom turned to me like she'd been waiting to say something all week. You didn't have to make him pay, Riley. I blinked. He wrecked my car. He's your brother. He stole it, while drunk, and crashed it. Dad crossed his arms. You've always held grudges. It's exhausting. Something in me snapped. No yelling, no drama. Just a quiet, steady boil, finally bubbling over. I held that car together. Paid for every repair, every oil change, every tank of gas. I said no. He stole it anyway. You backed him up, lied to me, lied to the police. And now you're mad that I made him fix what he broke. They looked stunned, as if I'd just insulted the family legacy or something. I didn't stop. I had to move out at 18 because this house didn't feel safe. You never protected me. You always protected him. Every time he shoved me around, broke my stuff, or blamed me, you gave him a pass. Mom opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You said he needed the car for work. I needed it for life. That car was my life. The silence after that ice cold. Then like clockwork, Dad muttered, "You're so dramatic." We weren't even in the body shop anymore. We'd stepped into a war that had been simmering for years. And then because this story just keeps writing itself, someone nearby, just some random guy sitting near the exit desk, muttered under his breath, "You guys are narcissists." My dad turned. Fast. It was like watching a switch flip. He lunged before I could even react, threw a punch that connected hard. The guy hit the floor, blood blooming from his nose. I yelled. The shop clerk screamed for someone to call the cops. Dad didn't even flinch. He just kept going. It took 2 other customers and the store manager to pull him off. By the time they had him pinned, the guy on the floor, his name was Dan, I later found out was dazed, barely conscious. And my dad? He ran. Left Mom behind crying in the lobby. Cops picked him up at home that night. Nate called to tell me. He didn't resist, he said. But he looked like a storm cloud ready to burst. Seth was ghost quiet through all of this, like he wanted to disappear into the wall. And Mom, she called me at 2 a.m. sobbing. "It's all my fault," she kept saying. I didn't say much back. I didn't know what to say anymore. The next morning, I went to check on Dan. He was in the ER, broken nose, concussion, swollen eye, neck brace. I didn't know him, but guilt sat heavy on me like I'd somehow brought that violence in with me. I told him I was sorry. He just shook his head. "You didn't hit me," he said. He did. We talked. Not long. But enough for me to see he was exactly the kind of guy my dad hated, calm, honest, not afraid to call out garbage when he saw it. He was also getting a lawyer. Good. A few days later, Dad got out of jail. I didn't see him, but Nate did. He said Dad looked awful, black eyes, fat lip bruises all over. Got into a fight inside, Nate said. Didn't win. Apparently, jail has its own sense of karma. I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. And Seth. He went back to pretending none of it happened. Paid for the car repairs. Avoided every conversation about that night. Mom still cried every time we spoke. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the bad guy. I felt like someone who finally stood their ground. Dad barely spoke after he got out. He shuffled into his house like a ghost, bruised, broken, and missing a tooth. I found out later it wasn't just one. 3 of his upper teeth were knocked loose in jail. The rest pulled by a dentist when they cracked. I thought maybe that silence meant reflection. It didn't. He didn't call, didn't text, just sat around the house drinking less but sulking more. I only knew because Seth would text me short updates. He hasn't said a word in days. Mom's still crying a lot. He just stares at the window sometime, and I didn't know how to feel. I wanted to feel bad, but guilt never showed up. What came instead was a weird kind of peace, like after a thunderstorm when everything smells different. Seth and I didn't talk much for a while, but he stayed true to his word. He paid the shop in full, didn't ask to borrow the car again, and returned the tracker key fob he had somehow copied. I'd never seen him that quiet before, that sober, that small. Then one day he messaged me. "Thanks for not pressing DUI. I know it was Nate, but still." I didn't respond. He followed up. "I got my license back in 6 months. Can't afford a car yet. Been biking to work." I stared at that message a while. This was the same guy who used to call me soft for taking the bus. The same guy who laughed when I worked double shifts while saving up for that car. Now he was pedaling through January snow. Poetic. Meanwhile, my parents started pretending nothing ever happened. No mention of the Christmas crash. No mention of the car theft. Not even a whisper about Dad assaulting a stranger in public and getting arrested for it. I guess denial was cheaper than therapy, but I wasn't buying it. And neither was the guy Dad punched Dan. He was healing slowly. I checked in on him a few times. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd shared something weird, a kind of accidental bond born out of chaos. One afternoon, he told me straight, "I'm suing your father, already filed." I nodded. "Good. You okay with that?" "Very." We dropped off a care basket that weekend. Me, Nate, and 2 of my friends. Just some snacks, basic supplies, and a little envelope with cash from each of us. Dan was out of work while recovering, and I knew my parents wouldn't help him. He was grateful, but quiet. You could tell the bruises weren't the only things that needed healing. Weeks passed. One night, Seth called me out of nowhere. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hey," he said. "Hey." A pause. "You free to talk?" "Depends." He sighed, not asking for anything. Just want to clear the air. That got my attention. So we met. At a diner. Neutral ground. No parents. No memories. He looked older. Like 6 months had passed instead of 6 weeks. But he seemed grounded. Nervous, but grounded. "I don't know who I was trying to be," he said, stirring a coffee he barely touched. "I guess I thought if I kept pretending I had it all together, no one would notice I was falling apart. I didn't say anything, just listened." He continued. "Mom and Dad, they don't see us. They see what they want from us. Me, the fixer-upper golden boy. You, the independent problem they can forget because you don't need help." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Yeah," I said. "That sounds about right." We sat in silence for a bit. Not awkward, not tense, just quiet. Then he asked something I didn't expect. "Do you hate me?" I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time since the crash, I didn't see a thief or a drunk or even my annoying older brother. I saw someone trying. "No," I said, "I don't hate you, but I don't trust you either." He nodded, like he already knew. "That's fair." Back at home, things were shifting again, but not in a good way. Seth told me Dad had started turning on him now. "You embarrassed us," he'd said. "You started all of this." Funny how that works. The golden child got demoted. And suddenly, my parents didn't have a scapegoat or a favorite. Just 2 adult kids who stopped playing by the script. I guess they didn't like that much. Seth moved out, crashed with a friend from work, said he couldn't stand the tension anymore. Mom begged him to stay. He didn't. Then she tried guilt texts. "This family's falling apart. I raised you better than this. How can you abandon us like this?" He showed them to me. I didn't laugh. I'd seen them before, word for word, same pressure, same emotional currency. "You okay?" I asked him. "I am now," he said. Meanwhile, Dad's lawsuit started moving forward. The footage from the body shop was clear. There were multiple witnesses, including me. He tried to fight it at first. Said Dan had provoked him, that he was under emotional stress. But then something changed. Windows on their van got shattered one night. Nate thinks it was a BB gun. No suspects, no proof. But that was enough to rattle Dad. After that, Mom gave him an ultimatum: settle or I walk. So he caved. Dan got a payout quietly through mediation. No headlines, no courtroom drama, just paperwork and a check with more zeros than Dad expected. As part of the agreement, Dad was ordered to take anger management. Mom won't tell me the settlement amount, but from the way Dad winces when the mail comes, I know it hurt. Funny thing is, even now, after all that, he still can't look me in the eye. When we cross paths, he just looks through me, like I'm glass or a ghost. I guess it's easier than admitting I was right. And me, I'm not angry anymore, not even bitter. I'm just done. After the lawsuit settled, there was this strange hush over the whole family. Like a storm had passed, but nobody was sure if they were still standing in the eye of it. Mom stopped calling as much. She used to check in every couple days, little guilt-laced chats pretending to be casual. Now maybe once a week, sometimes not at all. When she did call, she sounded tired. Not old, not weak, just drained. "I don't know what's happening to us," she said one night, her voice soft. I wanted to say, "This didn't just happen, you helped build it." But I didn't. Some things don't need to be said anymore. Seth was still out of the house, living with his co-worker Josh. Said the vibe was better. Cleaner air, less shouting, more fridge space. Every now and then he'd text me updates about work or show me pictures of some cheap used cars he was eyeing once his license suspension lifted. He was changing. Not dramatically, but steadily. I think pain humbled him. And maybe growing up outside our parents' walls gave him something he never had: perspective. We weren't close, not exactly, but the silence between us wasn't sharp anymore, just quiet. That was enough. My car, my Crown Vic, was finally back to normal. New bumper, repainted hood. She looked solid again. Nate even joked she looked better than when I first got her. He was right. Funny how much easier it is to heal something when no one's working against you. He also helped me install a kill switch, just in case. The GPS tracker stayed too. "I trust you," I told Seth. "But I trust a battery disconnect more." He laughed, didn't take it personally. Growth looks weird sometimes. Then one Saturday afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a text from my mom. "Can you come by? Your father wants to talk." No details, no hint at what I'd be walking into. Just a sentence that landed like a cold wind through a cracked window. I didn't answer right away. I sat with it, let it roll around in my chest for a bit. And then, against every instinct I'd learned to trust, I went. The house hadn't changed. Same squeaky front door, same smell of old coffee and worn-out leather. The TV was on, but muted, a sports game flickering in silence. Dad was on the couch. Didn't get up when I walked in, just looked at me like I was a headline he wasn't ready to read. Mom offered tea. I said no. Then I sat. No hugs, no how are yous. Just the three of us in that familiar, uncomfortable stillness. Finally, Dad spoke. "I lost a lot this year." I nodded once. Not sarcastic, not bitter, just acknowledging. He continued. "Some of it I deserved, some of it I didn't." I tilted my head slightly, waiting. He looked down. "I didn't hit that man because of what he said. I hit him because of what you said at the body shop." I blinked. "It was like you opened a door," he said, and everything I'd buried came rushing out. I didn't know what to do with that. Was it an apology, a deflection, a moment of honesty? Maybe all three. Mom sniffled quietly in the corner. Dad took a deep breath. "I don't know how to fix this." For a second, I thought I felt something crack open inside me, some tiny pocket of hope. But then I spoke. "I'm not asking you to fix it." He looked up. "I'm asking you to stop breaking it." That moment sat between us like a lit candle. Small, fragile, but real. He didn't argue, didn't blame, just nodded. And that was the closest thing to peace we'd had in years. I left before it could unravel. No dinner, no promises, just a goodbye and a door closing behind me. And I didn't look back. The next few months passed quietly, like everyone was waiting to see if the dust would stay settled. Mom didn't reach out again for a while. I didn't either. Seth finally bought a used Toyota. Nothing fancy. A little banged up, but his. He sent me a selfie standing next to it, keys in hand, smiling like a kid who just won a prize at the fair. I texted back. "Don't crash it. Don't steal mine. Proud of you." He replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was enough. Dan, yeah, the guy Dad hit, was doing better too. He went back to work part-time. Said he might start therapy. Said the money helped more than he expected, but the validation helped even more. I wasn't crazy, he told me once. What I said wasn't wrong. I was just the first one to say it out loud. He was right. People like my parents are used to no one challenging them. They confuse silence for respect, fear for love. Dan didn't stay quiet. And maybe that's why he got hit, because his words were the mirror my father couldn't look into. As for me, I started saving. Not just money, but space, mental space, emotional energy. I started looking for my own apartment again, somewhere further from the noise, even if it meant a longer commute. I wanted distance, not revenge, not closure, just space to breathe. And that, in the end, was the lesson. Sometimes peace doesn't come from winning a fight. It comes from stepping away before you're pulled under again. The last real conversation I had with Nate stuck with me. We were sitting on his porch watching the sky go pink. He said, "You did right, kid. You drew the line. You held it." I asked him if he thought they'd ever change. He took a long sip of his drink and said, "Maybe. But that's not your responsibility. You're not their redemption arc." I smiled. "So what am I?" He looked at me and said, "You're free. Freedom doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like quiet mornings. No calls you dread, no footsteps in the hallway that make you freeze. Just a stillness where you can finally hear your own thoughts again." I moved into a new place. Tiny studio, creaky floors, mismatched cabinets, but it was mine. Every corner echoed with silence. Not the heavy kind, the calm kind. I parked my Crown Vic in a space right out front. Installed a motion-activated camera above it, just in case. Not because I thought someone would take it again, because I wouldn't give anyone the chance. A few weeks after I settled in, Seth stopped by. He texted ahead, which I appreciated. Brought burgers and a six-pack. He even asked if he should leave his shoes at the door. Small thing, but it said a lot. We ate on the floor cross-legged like we used to when we were kids watching cartoons. Only this time there was no TV, just conversation. He told me about work his roommate, how weird it was not hearing Dad yelling every other day. "It's quiet now," he said, "but not peaceful, like the house is waiting for something to snap." I nodded. I knew that feeling too well. Then he looked at me and said, "You ever think we're just trying to be the opposite of them?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Maybe, I said. But I'd rather be an honest opposite than a fake copy. He smiled at that. We didn't talk about Christmas, or the crash, or court. Not directly, but it lingered in the room. Not like a ghost, more like a scar. Visible, but no longer bleeding. That weekend, Mom called again. She said she wanted to see me, just to talk. I wasn't sure what that meant. She didn't specify, and I didn't ask. But after sitting with it a while, I agreed to meet her. We chose a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Neutral ground. Somewhere that didn't belong to either of us. She showed up early. Still wore her pearls like armor. Still carried that practiced smile, the one that used to mean play nice. I sat down. No hug. Just a nod. She started with small talk. Weather. Or neighborhood gossip. Then she said, "Your father's not well." I stayed quiet. "He's angry, but it's different now. Tired, kind of lost." I sipped my tea. "I think he regrets what happened, but he doesn't know how to say it." I didn't flinch, didn't argue, because I wasn't there for his apology. I was there for mine. So I said, "You let him lie for Seth. You lied too. You tried to let me take the fall." She looked away. "I know," she whispered. "I was your kid too," I added. Tears welled in her eyes. Not dramatic, not manipulative, just raw. "You always seemed stronger," she said. "Like you didn't need me." "That's not how strength works," I said. "It's not a reason to abandon someone." And that's when she really cried. We talked longer than I expected. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just listened. Told me she missed who we used to be. Said she wanted to rebuild something but wasn't sure how. "I'm not sure either," I said. "But it won't be like before. That's over." She nodded, slowly, accepting it. That was the closest we'd ever come to real. After that meeting, something shifted. Not magically, not overnight. But the guilt texts stopped. The fake, cheerful voicemails faded. And for the first time in my life, my mother let silence mean respect instead of punishment. Dad didn't reach out, not once. And honestly, that was fine. There was nothing left to say between us that wouldn't come out jagged. Sometimes not healing is the most honest choice you can make. Seth and I started seeing each other more. Not often, but enough. We'd go on late drives, sometimes no destination. Just city lights and old rock playlists humming in the background. Sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't. I almost totaled this thing, he said once, tapping the dashboard of my Crown Vic. Could have wrecked everything. You almost did, I replied. He didn't deny it. He just said thanks for still letting me in. That's when I knew we were okay. Not perfect, not best friends close, but okay. One night, as we were parked outside his place, he asked something I didn't expect. Do you think they'll ever change? I stared through the windshield for a long time before answering. I think they'll change when silence hurts more than honesty. He let out a soft laugh, so probably never, probably not. And that was that. I spent the next few weeks focusing on myself. Picked up more hours at work, started a little side hustle, fixing up older cars, something Nate had taught me and Seth used to mock. Now Seth was asking if he could help. I told him to start with the oil pan. We didn't say it, but I knew he saw it. I wasn't the shadow anymore. I wasn't the extra kid. I wasn't just the one who handled things. I was me. Fully, finally. Nate came by the new place once, dropped off an old toolbox full of hand-labeled sockets and wrenches. Consider it a blessing and a curse, he said with a grin. Now no one can say you don't know what you're doing. He looked around the studio apartment. The scuffed counters, the old tile floors, the sunlight cutting through the window like a gentle reminder. You good here? He asked. I nodded. I'm better than I've ever been. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. There was no name on the front. No smudged return address. Just my name in plain block letters. Written like it came from a man who didn't know how to start softer. I knew the handwriting instantly. Sharp, rigid, my father's. I sat on the edge of my bed and unfolded the letter slowly. My fingers moved like they were touching something alive. Something I wasn't sure wanted to bite or apologize. It was only one page, but it carried the weight of years. Riley, I don't know how to say what I should have said years ago. I don't know if it matters anymore. I messed up. I know that now, not just what happened at the shop, not just Christmas, all of it. You always did everything right, and somehow I made you feel like that wasn't enough. I think I resented your steadiness, your silence. You never needed my help, so I gave it to the one who did. That wasn't love. That was pride. I told myself I was being fair, that I was keeping balance, but deep down I knew. I was failing you. When I saw you standing in the snow that night, refusing to lie, refusing to back down, I saw myself. The version of me I always wanted to be. That's the truth. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now. Dad, I read it once, then again. Then I folded it carefully and set it down next to my keys. Not because I was emotional, because I wasn't. I felt still, like the earth had stopped shaking long enough for me to plant my feet. That night I didn't dream. No restless tossing, no old voices echoing, just the sound of wind outside my window and my own breath steady and calm. I didn't tell anyone about the letter for a few days. Not Nate, not Seth, not even my closest friends. It wasn't a secret. It was just mine. A message meant for closure, not a performance. Eventually, I showed it to Nate. He read it slowly, his face unreadable. When he finished, he handed it back and said, "That's the most honest thing I've ever seen your dad write." "Does it matter?" I asked. "That's up to you," he said. "Sometimes we carry weight for so long we forget we can set it down." Seth found out on his own, Mom told him. He came by the next week with that same look I'd seen after the crash, cautious, unsure, trying to read the room before speaking. "He wrote you too?" he asked. I nodded. "Did you answer?" "No." He nodded slowly like he got it. "Think you will?" I thought about that for a moment. "No, I don't think I need to." That was the truth. I didn't need to reply. Because the letter wasn't the beginning of something. It was the end. Months passed. The seasons turned. Dan recovered fully. Went back to work. Said the whole thing had changed. How he viewed people made him slower to trust, quicker to walk away when things felt off. Sometimes the punch isn't what hurts the most, he told me once. It's realizing who threw it. I understood that more than I wanted to admit. Seth and I kept our rhythm. Not brothers glued together, but brothers held by something real now. Not guilt, not blood. Respect. He helped me fix up a car for resale. We split the profit. Didn't even argue about who got the bigger cut. "That's growth," I joked. He laughed. "That's poverty." Fair enough. Mom started sending postcards. Little ones. From flea markets, from antique stores, from cities she visited with old friends I never met. They didn't ask for anything, just stories, memories, little pieces of her day. I didn't always reply, but I read everyone. It was like she finally learned that love doesn't always need to take up space, it just needs to be offered without strings. Dad never followed up. No call, no visit, no second letter. I think he knew one was enough. Sometimes saying sorry is the final thing you get to do for someone, not the first step back into their life. 1 year to the day after the crash, I drove my Crown Vic out to a small overlook just outside of town. Same playlist playing, same cold air fogging the windows. I sat there for a while, engine humming softly, headlights cutting into the trees. I thought about everything that had happened, all the yelling, the lies, the breakdowns, the silence, and then somehow the rebuilding, piece by piece, word by word, boundary by boundary. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just felt clear. That was enough. Before I drove home, I took my phone out, opened my notes app, and typed 3 lines. Not a post, not a journal, just a thought. You can't choose the family you're born into, but you can choose how far they're allowed to follow you. And that choice, that's where peace begins. I closed the app, turned the key, and drove away. Story 2. After my entitled sister caught me cheating on her, I severed my relationship with her. My mother is now insistent that I invite my sister to my wedding. So brace up, I uninvited my mom. It will be lengthy, and I will begin from the very beginning. Thus, everything is evident. As the eldest of 4 siblings, 3 sisters, and our youngest brother, I am 28 years old. I'm 2 years older than the second child, who we'll call Pickle. Our brother is 11 years younger, and the next sister, let's call her Cupcake, is 5 years younger. Since my brother and I get along so well, I won't talk about him much. Cupcakes are no different. Even as children, we've never experienced any problems. Just friendship and affection. Let's return to the beginning now. Unbelievably, it started with the invention of pickles. My parents claim that when I was a toddler, I was envious of her, but I don't recall any of this. They constantly brought up the things I allegedly did to cause her problems. In college, I studied childhood psychology and discovered that it's common for firstborns to feel envious or dislocated when a sibling is born. Instead of just showing up one day with another baby and concentrating all of their attention on her, my parents ought to have helped me bond with her, delighted me, and included me in her care. They could have at least avoided bringing it up for the rest of our lives, even if they didn't adequately prepare me. Pickles continues to cling to the tale as though it sums up our whole partnership, claiming that I am the issue and that I have detested her from the beginning. Hurry up, I was just 2 years old. I have no recollection of that age. We were never on good terms. Never. Throughout our whole life, we were in continual verbal and physical conflict. My parents made no genuine effort to assist in fixing it. Perhaps they assumed we would get over it. Additionally, our personalities are quite different. Up until I was around 10, we had to share a room. She was untidy. I was tidy. She damaged both her and my toys. I've always loved the things I own. Seeing her ruin the things I cherish was incredibly painful. We had to share, though. I also didn't get to mention that my mother was the primary caregiver, since my dad was away much of the time driving a truck. At a very young age, I became the second parent. I had to take care of my younger siblings, help my mom, and clean. It was obviously simpler for my mom to have me do everything, rather than teach Pickle how to do chores because she wasn't very good at them. Pickle already had problems with everyone by middle school. Lack of friends, incessant drama, and the insistence that others were trying to harm her even when I wasn't involved were all my responsibility. Despite attending the same school, there was no overlap between our classrooms because they were on different sides of the building. I didn't speak to her or have any influence on her academic career. The situation got so severe that my parents sent her to live with my grandparents while attending high school in my mom's hometown, which was an hour away. Despite spending 4 years there, she did not graduate from high school with any close friends. My parents left us with our other grandparents when I was 15 years old to go to Germany for employment. It was difficult. I had an undetected eating issue and a lot of obligations. I should also explain that in a nation with a large Muslim population, my sister and dad would travel there for religious holidays. I had a close-knit group of friends and a Muslim hidden boyfriend. Particularly for females, this was viewed as dishonorable and exceedingly hazardous. If a girl was detected in one of these partnerships, she was frequently beaten. However, I was cautious and did a good job of hiding it. Even in our tiny town, until one New Year's Eve, my mom forced me to go out with her since she didn't have any friends. I was 17, she was 15. In my hometown, teens going out at that age is not uncommon. Pickle learned about my guy, although she first kept it to herself. This was the only time we ever bonded as sisters. I really believed I could rely on her. When I was 20, my parents were helping me live and study in a different city. In our nation, attending university isn't too costly, particularly if you have financial assistance from someone who works overseas. Pickle was meant to accompany me, but she failed to complete her ID in time. I kept reminding her, but she didn't take it seriously. After growing weary, my father relocated her to Germany. She eventually finished an apprenticeship and is currently employed in a steady position. However, we haven't arrived yet. Around 2017, my other siblings relocated. As usual, Pickle was always trying to prove something and arguing with everyone. She brought up how my parents had permitted me to date a Muslim in the past during a dispute with my mom and aunt in 2019 on mixed marriages. Mom didn't know. She stopped. I had to end the call when she threatened me over the phone. The distance allowed me to fake my way out of it. However, you have no idea how risky that was for me. I may have been disconnected, evicted, or worse. For whatever reason, Pickle exposed me in order to feel better about herself. For me, it was that betrayal. I meant it when I texted her to never talk to me again. Since then, I have fulfilled that commitment. After receiving my master's degree in 2020, I spent my first year in Germany. My family and I shared a home. I did their laundry, cleaned, cooked, and worked full-time. I never breached my pledge, though. She tried to talk to me, but I didn't look at her or say anything. She never expressed regret, but one day she lost it and accused me of being a horrible sister right away. She said that simply because we shared a residence, she assumed we would speak again, but that it would have hurt me more to acknowledge her than it would have to ignore her. Fortunately, I don't see her when I visit because I moved out in 2021 and haven't seen her much since she did. Let's talk about my mother. She comes from a large wolf pack-like family and is 51 years old. They are always there for one another. On the surface, anyhow. That's not the purpose, though. Emotionally, my parents are unstable. Some, but not all, of their parenting problems can be explained by their experiences during the war when they were youths. Everyone is stonewalled by my mom whenever she doesn't get what she wants, and because she's never content, things never work out. I hate her more than I hate either of my parents. She never left my side and let me down more times than I can remember. We are unable to love one another despite my mother's wishes. Pickle is an issue for all of us. We don't like her. My other two siblings, however, put up with her. Whenever she has the opportunity, she verbally abuses my younger brother. She has turned nasty and is genuinely sad. My mother stated that I had to invite Pickle as soon as I got engaged. She hadn't even crossed my mind. Her distance from my life is that great. My mother stated she wouldn't come either when I told her I wouldn't ask her. Her absence from my lunch would not be the first time. Pickle wasn't invited twice in the past. She eventually began to arrive, even in the absence of Pickles. But she's setting a firm boundary for the wedding. She is adamant that she will alter my opinion. She refuses. She claims that when she first exposed me, Pickle was a child. I informed her that she was 20, a grown-up who was well aware of my fate. To be honest, I believe she did it because she was envious. While she was trapped attending language lessons and working part-time, I was a university student living on my own. To feel better about her own life, she had to drag me down. After cutting the Pickle out, I felt at ease. I'm not going to bring the drama back into my life. You can't imagine the number of emotional outbursts I've had. I just wanted to be left alone, though. Even if she merely sat in a corner, I don't trust her to avoid creating drama. I don't want to be worried and stressed on my wedding day. All I want to do is unwind and have fun. This circumstance has caused me to seriously contemplate isolating my mother from the rest of the family. Presses me or brings it up. Only her. My mom could drag the rest of the family into it and give them a hard time about coming if I don't ask her. I'm at a loss. To maintain the peace, though, I will definitely not invite Pickle. How would you respond, Edith? In conclusion, because of her lifetime of toxic conduct, which includes a significant betrayal that placed me in danger, I am declining to invite my sister Pickle to my wedding. I found serenity in cutting her off since we've never gotten along. My mother is now threatening to skip it unless I ask her. I feel like I've been emotionally blackmailed and exploited. However, drama at my wedding is not what I want. My choice is respected by the rest of my family. I'm only under pressure from my mother. Even not asking her to aita is something I'm thinking about. Comments that are pertinent, one that is commentary. She brought up the fact that my parents had permitted me to date a Muslim in 2019 during a dispute with my mom and aunt on mixed marriages. My mother didn't know back then. She stopped. I had to end the call when she threatened me over the phone. The distance allowed me to fake my way out of it. However, you have no idea how risky that was for me. I may have been disconnected, evicted, or worse. Here, your mother was the issue and the threat. A lot more than Pickles. Why was she invited in the first place? She never had a companion. She was depressed and lonely, so I had to take her around a lot. According to my mother, having a sister is always preferable to having a friend. She always felt that sisters meant best friends. The second commenter. Remember to employ security to keep Pickles out of the ceremony and wedding location. This kind of person has the potential to seriously ruin your lovely wedding, which you and your partner should enjoy. Fortunately for I doubt she would travel all the way back to Bosnia to make an unexpected appearance, but I must still make it plain that I will humiliate her if she does. Since I don't want to talk to her, I won't tell her outright. However, I want my mother to know that if she brings her, I will take the stage, make a public statement, and expel them both. Long ago, I explained the problem to my fiancé and his entire family, perhaps after a year of dating. According to my other sister, Pickles informed her that my fiancé, who was only my boyfriend at the time, would not have realized that I was not talking to her since I would never acknowledge that I was that type of person or anything. Nevertheless, I advised my other sister to inform her that I'm not embarrassed of anything and that everyone already knows. Third commenter. Could you please explain why your mother was invited to the wedding? I don't even know I have yet to send out the invites. As soon as I announced my engagement, she stated all of that. But I would invite her. I just will not interact with her. However, my sister, number commenter, 3. I suppose I'm having a hard time comprehending why your sister telling your mother something about you is so much worse than the fact that, as you admit, your mother is racist and put you in danger. Additionally, it was she who established the relationship between you and your sister. Your mother's actions are far worse than whatever your sister has done. For example, where is the conflict? Don't invite any of them. To truly get my parents' perspective on dating a Muslim, you would need to learn about or conduct research on my nation's centuries-long history of killing, as well as the war they experienced. Actually, it's not racism. Their experiences have made them fearful. After all of that, I was born, and I don't feel that way. It's difficult to communicate to older generations that I have no prejudices toward any faith. Peace and genuine acceptance in that area won't come for a long time. NGL. I'm so happy I'm not there anymore, since there could even be a new conflict coming up soon. In all honesty, Whoopi, I have heard of sisters doing even worse, such as having an affair with their sister's spouse and then challenging their parents' will in order to drag them through the legal system and spend the majority of their fortune on legal bills, purely out of envy and pettiness. Even worse, I kept expecting this story to blow up, but it never happened. Given how immature and socially awkward your sister is, I consider a 20-year-old to be a child. Personally, I would forgive her and make another attempt at an adult friendship. In around 10 years, she has most likely matured considerably. Living together and never seeing her is a very weird job. It seems that your mother taught you how to stonewall. In that sense, do you truly wish to emulate her? I wouldn't talk to her either if you were actually going to be an honor murderer. But if it was the fear of being cut off by your religious, bigoted parents, I apologize, but it's bearable. During my sophomore year of college, I brought home a brown lover, and my waspy parents, who I knew were prejudiced but not so racist, cut me off financially. It wasn't the end of the world, but it was difficult to make ends meet between classes by working at a few bars. Additionally, your parents are more to blame for that response than she is. She was obviously envious. Furthermore, the majority of 20-year-olds lack adult maturity. In the end, it's your day, and you get to choose who you allow into your life. You seem to have already succeeded and are seeking confirmation. I'm happy that you can get it from all of these other commenters. However, you know you're superior to this eldest daughter to eldest daughter. Why must I be better than this OP? I don't want to feel awful for myself in order to cheer up other people. Since I am aware that she hasn't changed, I don't want to be friends with her. She continues to start arguments with my other siblings, as I said in the article. For instance, when she visits them, she immediately enters my brother's room where he is playing video games with his buddies and begins to harass him, telling him that if he doesn't stop playing games and concentrate primarily on his studies, he would fail and never succeed. She merely wants to torment someone. His grades are good. She involves my mother, claiming that she needs time to spend with her brother and sister, and that she must make him leave the room so she can play board games and do anything else she wants. More details from the original poster. It's clear to state that I'm not the issue after reading the comments, as they all support my position thus far. I also came up with a humorous idea that you might find amusing. My sister used to threaten self-harm with a butter knife when we were adolescents. I couldn't help but chuckle whenever we argued, since it was so ridiculous, which clearly infuriated her even more. The cycle would then repeat itself. 2 days later, provide an update. A minor update. I've been thinking a lot about this recently. I texted my dad because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Even if my mother decided not to attend the wedding, I asked him directly whether he would. When he phoned, he began to talk about how marriage is a holy ceremony and that he hoped that by the next year I would see his mistake and forgive my sister. All of your suggestions and remarks flooded back. I muttered something like, "Please stop," and stopped him. I must reiterate this. No matter how many times I say it, I will never be able to forgive her. I don't give her any thought. She is not missed. And since cutting her off, I don't wonder how she's doing. I was at ease. No unexpected drama, no emotional turmoil, just tranquility. I will not relinquish that. Additionally, don't begin with a sacrament discussion. During confession, my priest and I discuss forgiveness. You have no right to remark on that. Just wondering if you'll be present on my wedding day. You and your mother will both have a seat. However, it's acceptable if you decide not to attend. I will provide an honest and unapologetically honest response if someone asks me where pickles are. I don't feel guilty about my choice, despite the fact that everyone believes I am. Additionally, I'll be truthful if others question why you didn't show up. I'm not going to feel bad about this. He simply sat still. I hung up after telling him I needed to finish drying my hair. I haven't heard anything since that more than an hour ago. As I said it, I was trembling. I doubt he could tell, though. I didn't even get teary-eyed or weep. Standing up to my father was really difficult. I think that was the first time I ever really did it. My mother was probably present as well, but she remained silent. To be honest, it could be best that way. The last thing I need right now is her opinion. If they decide not to show up, I will be escorted down the aisle by my closest friend's big brother, who has been like a brother to me for years. No blood relative has ever treated me with more respect and care than he has. If my family doesn't come, I won't be devastated. Dealing with this circumstance in the first place is what hurts the most. I hope it's not even off topic. When the wedding day arrives in a year, we'll see what transpires. Pickles, however, are definitely not welcome. I'm not going to compromise on that clear border. To be honest, I'm really shocked that my dad chose to support my mother. I didn't anticipate that. In summary, I asked my father whether he would still come to my wedding even if my mother didn't. He attempted to use guilt to get me to forgive my sister, but I refused and made it plain that I was content without her. I informed him that I would not be ashamed of my decisions or be silent about them. My best friend's brother, who is like family to me, will escort me down the aisle if my parents aren't there. I eventually stood up for myself, albeit it was difficult. Comments that are pertinent combine into one. Why in the world are pickles bad? How is it possible for her to attend school alone and for your parents to do nothing to help her OP? Dismissing mental health concerns is a cultural practice in the area. People don't take it seriously. She would often walk into the kitchen, take butter knives out of the drawer, and pretend to cut herself while weeping during our arguments, as I recall. I was unable to even believe it. In fact, I made fun of her, which therefore made everything worse. I realize it wasn't the appropriate response, but I honestly didn't know how else to react. She is 2 years younger than me, and I was probably in my early teens at the time. So yes, we were both young. She also remembers her last year of middle school. At the conclusion of the year, every class takes a major trip, and something happened while her class was away for a few days. Apparently, she created a drama of some sort. I heard she was threatening to jump from the balcony, but nobody really knows the specifics. At the hotel, it became a huge issue. Everyone was worried. The instructor was so overwhelmed that they did let my parents know. However, my parents never discussed it with us at all. I wouldn't have been aware of it if her classmate hadn't told me. It's obvious that she's having problems in high school. I've even heard that she reported bullying at school to the police. The whole story is unknown to me. People keep these things secret and families don't discuss them freely. Sincerely, I can't even recall who informed me. It may have been a family member. However, it's evident that she's having difficulties. However, I don't believe I should be her therapist or repair her. When she was younger, my parents were in charge of it, and now it seems like it's too late. Second commenter. Even though I don't know you, I am really proud of you for defending yourself. You mentioned that you presently reside in Germany, which caught my attention because I perform 2 Catholic weddings in the South where the husband waits for the bride to be delivered to him. In order to represent the new approach, they typically have the pair enter together. The ceremony will be the first thing they do. I'm not sure how prepared you are, but this could be a good way to avoid seeing your father, or at least you'll know what a priest might bring up in your consultation. I wish you luck. I hope your wedding day is fantastic. OP, I appreciate your nice remarks. Although my fiancé is German and I live in Germany, my local church in Bosnia will host the wedding since it is customary in my culture. The bride's father brings her in as the groom waits inside. But it doesn't really bother me. I have no doubt that my best friend's elder brother will perform well when he walks me down the aisle. The family we are born into may not always be as significant as the one we select. OP need to think about traveling to NC with her folks. I hope. I've made the decision not to go see them or extend an invitation. Any correspondence must now originate from their end. When the wedding invitation is printed, I will give it to them so they can't claim they weren't invited, but I won't talk to them about it if they inquire about it. I'll turn it off right now. The OP describes the customs around marriage in her hometown. Did she want to do it in order to marry OP? It is something I have been anticipating for a very long time. In my nation, it is customary for the groom and all of his guests to go to the bride's city for the church wedding, even if he lives in a separate town. Here in Germany, we will have a city hall wedding followed by a modest lunch with our closest relatives, his household, my chosen family, and my 2 lovely siblings. Has Opie's mother threatened her siblings, or do any of them have plans to attend the wedding, Opie? My brother will still be underage at the wedding, so it's still unclear if he will accompany my sister when she claims she's coming. Therefore, it's possible that my parents are keeping him from leaving, which I wouldn't rule out. We appreciate you viewing the video. We've got more stories in store for you if you're interested in hearing them. Just press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell your friends about it. Story 3. After my sister unjustly accused my boyfriend of seeing her, my family rejected me for failing to support her. A year has passed. There were no legal issues, and my partner went back to his normal activities. My goal is to make amends with my family. Although he is letting me, my partner is not interested in establishing a relationship with my family. Since I can remember, I have always been the odd one out in my family. There was always a feeling, even though I was never explicitly ignored because I have autism. Only 2 individuals in my life gave me the impression that I was whole: my sister and my boyfriend. Growing up, my sister and I had been close, separated by just 2 years. She always made place for me, even though she was the golden child. When I didn't understand sarcasm, it was she who clarified it for me, helped me deal with the tension amongst my friends. I was unable to comprehend and even defended myself when my parents were disrespectful. Up until college, we couldn't be separated. In the beginning, it was simpler because we ended up attending the same school. Things began to change in ways I couldn't quite understand, but I didn't have to be alone. In our sophomore year, I started dating my boyfriend. One of the few Black people in our predominantly white college town is him. Almost once, the murmurs began. Just enough to sense the passive-aggressive inquiries, nothing overt. Even my own relatives gave me 2 lengthy looks. Although they weren't explicitly racist, the microaggressions were consistent. He was the first to show me that I was someone worth loving rather than just putting up with, that I wasn't a burden. He wasn't loved by my sister. She didn't resist, though. She expressed her happiness, even though she spoke with a tightness around her mouth whether I was happy. The week following the midterms, everything went haywire. To relieve her tension, she had gone out with pals. I never truly did that. Noise and bars make me anxious, and I would much rather stay at home. My partner and I were hiding out in the student lounge that evening while some of our classmates were having a late-night party. He was always at my side. 6 additional persons were able to support that. When I opened my dorm door the following morning, I saw my sister sobbing, irate, and trembling. It wasn't until she said it that I realized what was occurring. He attacked me. My mind became blank. I assumed she was experiencing a breakdown or miscommunication. She just repeated it when I inquired what she meant. He was the one. He was present. He took hold of me. I was harmed by him. That can't be true, I told her. I spent the entire night with him. I made an effort to remain composed, console her, and comprehend what had transpired. I thought she had been beaten. I still do. I knew that couldn't be him, though. She refused to accept it. She insisted that he had a sweatshirt similar to the one the guy wore and that he often visited that pub. He was 2 when her buddy spotted him. He was with me the entire time we had witnesses, I repeated, that he couldn't be the culprit. She accused me of preferring him over her and gaslighting her. I had no idea what to do. I pleaded with her to call the police or campus security. Must at least provide her with the conclusion of a thorough inquiry. However, she didn't. Neither did her pals. All they knew was that the man was tall, dark, and resembled my partner, but none of them could identify for sure who he was. In a school where around 3% of the student body is Black. Apparently that was plenty. I supported my lover. How could I not? He had evidence, observers, everything. Furthermore, he would never act in such a manner. I was acquainted with him. He is someone I know. And the more my sister pressed, the more she insisted that I always take her side. The more surrounded I felt. Things quickly became worse. We yelled at one another. She made terrible remarks about him and me, saying that I always prioritized myself, that I didn't truly love her, because she ought to have seen she shouldn't put her confidence in someone like him. That section probably broke me. She interrupted me. Moreover, via extension, the rest of my family did the same. It seems that the last straw for me with them was my defense of my lover. My mother replied that while she could understand my confusion, it would have been preferable to just provide my sister with unwavering support. I was informed bluntly by my father that I choose a guy above kin. But what was my actual option? I cherished my sister. I still do. Nevertheless, I was equally certain that she was mistaken. It's about who attacked her, not about being attacked. Throughout the years, my partner and I have discussed it more times than I can remember. Initially, he was upset. At the circumstance, not at her. How quickly a false identification can ruin someone's life. Even yet, he claimed to have an understanding of her feelings. Things are distorted by trauma. Your brain attempts to make sense of the confusion while you're in pain, but it occasionally makes mistakes. He has explicitly said that he does not wish to communicate with my family, yet he has even urged me to get in touch with her. I can't hold him responsible. I'm glad I stood up for him. I repeat, even if the consequences were the same. However, I do lament the outcome. She is missed. I long for the connection we once shared. Every Christmas season exacerbates the situation. I see recollections and old pictures. Additionally, there is a persistent hollow discomfort. It's striking more forcefully this year. There are kind folks all around me, some nice buddies and my partner. However, the spot where she used to be is still empty, and it cannot be filled by loyalty or reasoning. I've been considering getting in touch. I just wanted to let you know that I still adore you. You are still on my mind, and I apologize for how things turned out. I'm not sure if it's the best course of action. I have no idea whether she would even open it, much less reply. However, I have to try, because even after rebuilding my life, a part of me still feels trapped at that particular time. Remarks. First comment. It seems to her that she is unable to distinguish between two black men. I'm not even reaching there. We're dealing with more than just mistaken identity. If your boyfriend has several alibi witnesses, and she is still adamant that it was him since he goes to that bar and looks like the person. Additionally, by rejecting your account. She's not only making accusations, she's also accusing you of lying. That must be painful. Second comment. I think you were assaulted, and I think it was this particular person are very different. Your sister is demanding the latter even though it goes against verified facts and alibis, even though you have obviously given her the former. It's unfair to her, your boyfriend, and you. I genuinely feel sorry for you three. Your sister experienced a traumatic event. Perception, not facts, is being used to judge your boyfriend. And in a situation designed to destroy those things, you're trying to maintain logic, empathy, and loyalty. You are also worthy of grace. Perhaps begin by stating that although you think she has trauma, the identity part doesn't match reality if you do get in touch with her again. A mutual friend might be able to help. Third comment. I'm genuinely astounded by some of the responses here, which make it seem irrational to put your trust in someone who has numerous witnesses and has never left your side. Do people believe that you ought to have fitted him with a body camera? It's amazing how quickly race causes logic to be abandoned. Also, let's not overlook, she never reported it. That might mean she wasn't confident in her own ID. Doesn't lessen the pain she went through, but it complicates the blame game. If I were in your shoes, I'd give it time. If she comes around, great. If she doesn't, don't gaslight yourself into bending reality to fix the relationship that's not on you. Update. I didn't expect my original post to get much traction. I just needed to say the words out loud. Needed anyone to understand how complicated and painful it all was. But the response was more than I ever imagined. It was overwhelming in the best and worst ways. Some of what I read was hard to sit with. A lot of things made me think. Some of it helped me grieve. I spent days reading and rereading everything, processing, sitting with the truth of what I've gone through, what my lover went through, and recognizing how much of it I had emotionally repressed simply to operate. I kept going back to the issue, what do I want from my sister closure? Forgiveness. I apologize. Maybe just not to feel like I lost her forever. But there's still a possibility of the future where she doesn't look at me like I'm the villain in her suffering. So I wrote her a Christmas card. It wasn't long. Just enough to let her know I still loved her, that I still thought she was harmed, that I didn't want to erase or reduce what she went through. But what happened that night didn't involve the man I love. I told her I didn't anticipate anything. I merely wanted to open a door. 2 weeks went by. Nothing. I made an effort to avoid spiraling. Just before New Year's then, she sent me an SMS, only a few lines. "I got the card," she said. That although she was grateful that I had contacted her, she was still not prepared to speak. "It's still too raw and too confusing," she remarked. She didn't block me, though. She concluded by signing off. "I'm hoping you will." That was it. It was also more than I had anticipated. After reading that, I started crying. I simply wept till I was unable to do so any longer while sitting on the couch. It wasn't pardon. It wasn't a reconciliation. It was a signal, though. There was a glimmer of hope that this complete separation would not be permanent. When he initially received the message, my partner remained silent. He simply drew me in and offered to help me afterwards. In addition to telling me that he was pleased of me for contacting him, he cautioned me against having unrealistic expectations. Despite having every cause to be angry with the way things turned out, he has been my pillar of support during this entire ordeal and has never attempted to force me to pick between his needs and my recovery. I understand that his only request was to not attend any family reunions. I completely respect that. However, things did become nasty on another front. My mother somehow discovered that we had been communicating. My sister may have said it casually, but all of a sudden I began receiving texts from her. For the sake of family, 2 guilt-ridden people asked if we could all come together and move past our differences, as though this was only a lousy argument that we might ignore. No, I told her. I informed her that contacting my sister did not imply that I was prepared to act as though nothing had occurred. I informed her that I would not allow my partner to be examined, downplayed, or taken advantage of by others who still viewed him as a walking accusation. That didn't sit well with her. Since then, we haven't talked. That's where things are then. I don't anticipate a large reunion in the near future. I am aware that too much harm was done. Given how profoundly entwined racism, trauma, grief, and familial guilt are with trust, I am not naive about what it takes to restore it. However, something changed. I pulled open a door. She did not force it to close, and there must be some significance to that. If anybody has experienced something similar, such as reestablishing contact with someone after years of being silent or dealing with trauma that crosses family boundaries, how did you handle it? What was beneficial? Did the pain ever go away because I still feel that anguish despite all I've constructed around myself? Every holiday and every family tale I can't tell has that silent little question mark at the end. Loss is the end of every memory. Any guidance on the following steps would be greatly appreciated. Remarks. First comment. To be honest, I'm a little surprised that you got in touch at all. You're the one giving peace offerings after your boyfriend's ordeal of being racially profiled and wrongly accused by your family. He is worthy of better. He deserves someone who will stand up for him without questioning your actions. For him, it's reopening the door to those who sought to ruin his life, even if it might feel like closure to you. Consider carefully who and why you are prioritizing them. Second comment. The amount of emotional work required to love someone, grieve someone else, and attempt to exist in the midst of all of that is something I don't believe people realize. Your partner wasn't betrayed by you. You excluded him from it. Your sister's actions were not justified by you. You just acknowledged her suffering. It's acceptable to desire both, to respect the facts and lament the lost connection. The process of healing is messy. No matter how it feels to you, you are free to move in that direction. Third comment. I understand your desire for closure, but exercise caution. She attempted to destroy the life of your boyfriend. We mean it seriously, not in a nebulous, "oh, we don't like him" sense. I'm not sure how he managed to endure the card scenario without feeling inferior. However, I appreciate that you're making an effort to consider all viewpoints. In order to maintain harmony, please don't downplay what he endured. There's a reason why certain doors remain closed. We appreciate you viewing the video. We've got more stories in store for you if you're interested in hearing them. Just press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell your friends about it.